A grown man who had spent years hiding his pain would be standing in the middle of a crowded room with tears streaming down his face. He thought he was going on a simple birthday date. He had no idea that someone had spent months planning a surprise that would change his life forever. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of people showing up for one another when life gets difficult, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel Heartwarming Tales. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. 38-year-old Malcolm Reed had become an expert at carrying burdens in silence. Every morning before the sun fully rose, he was already awake. His day began with preparing breakfast for his 8-year-old daughter, Zaria. Then came getting her ready for school, driving across town to his construction job, working long hours under the blazing sun, picking her up afterward, helping with homework, cooking dinner, cleaning the apartment, and somehow finding enough energy to do it all again the next day. Most people who saw Malcolm thought he was strong. What they didn't see were the lonely nights. They didn't see the unpaid bills stacked inside a kitchen drawer. They didn't see the framed family photo he still kept hidden in his bedroom closet because looking at it hurt too much. 5 years earlier, Malcolm's wife had passed away unexpectedly after a sudden illness. One moment they were building a future together, and the next, he found himself raising a little girl alone while trying to navigate a grief so deep it felt endless. The loss shattered him. But he never had the luxury of falling apart. His daughter needed him. So every day he pushed forward. For years, his entire world revolved around work and parenting. Birthdays became ordinary days. Holidays became quieter. Friendships slowly faded because he was always too busy or too exhausted. The man who once laughed easily became someone who simply survived. On the morning of his 38th birthday, Malcolm expected nothing special. He dropped Zaria off at school and headed toward work. Then his phone buzzed. The message was from a woman named Naomi Bennett. Malcolm knew Naomi through a local community center where they occasionally volunteered during neighborhood events. She was kind, intelligent, and always seemed to notice when someone else needed help. The message wished him a happy birthday and invited him to lunch. At first he assumed she was joking. Nobody had invited him anywhere in years. But another message followed explaining that birthdays deserved celebrating and that she would not accept excuses. For several minutes Malcolm stared at the screen. Part of him wanted to decline. The other part remembered what it felt like to be treated like more than just a worker and a father. Eventually he agreed. The lunch was scheduled for early afternoon. As he worked that morning, he found himself thinking about it more than he expected. When lunchtime arrived, he cleaned up, changed into a fresh shirt he kept in his truck, and drove toward the restaurant Naomi had chosen. The day was beautiful. Bright sunshine filled the streets. Families walked through parks. Children laughed on playgrounds. For a brief moment, Malcolm felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. When he arrived, however, something seemed unusual. The restaurant looked closed. The parking lot was nearly empty. He checked the address twice. It was correct. Confused, he sent Naomi a message. Moments later she appeared from around the corner and waved him toward a nearby building. Malcolm followed, assuming there had been a change of plans. What he didn't know was that every step was leading him toward a moment that would alter his understanding of love, friendship, and community forever. The building turned out to be an old event hall. As they approached the entrance, Malcolm noticed colorful decorations hanging near the doorway. He frowned. Something felt strange. Naomi smiled but said nothing. Then she opened the door. The moment Malcolm stepped inside, the world seemed to stop. The room exploded with applause. Dozens of people stood together beneath bright decorations and handmade banners. His co-workers were there. Neighbors were there. Teachers from Zaria's school were there. Volunteers from the community center were there. Even people he had not seen in years stood smiling through tears. And in the center of it all stood his daughter, holding a sign that read, "Happy birthday, Daddy. Thank you for never giving up." Malcolm froze. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. The room blurred. His chest tightened. For years he had convinced himself nobody noticed his sacrifices. For years he believed he was simply doing what had to be done. Now he stood surrounded by proof that people had been watching all along. People had seen the early mornings, the late nights, the endless sacrifices, the quiet strength. And they had gathered together to celebrate him. Zarya ran into his arms. As he held her tightly, tears filled his eyes. But the surprises were only beginning. One by one, people approached and shared stories. A coworker spoke about how Malcolm had secretly covered shifts for struggling employees. A neighbor remembered how he fixed broken fences without asking for payment. A teacher described how he never missed a parent meeting despite working exhausting hours. Others shared memories of his kindness, generosity, and resilience. With every story, Malcolm felt years of loneliness slowly cracking apart. The walls he had built around his heart began to fall. Then Naomi stepped forward. Months earlier, she explained, she had noticed how isolated Malcolm had become. She saw a man carrying the weight of the world entirely alone. When she spoke with others, she discovered many people felt grateful for things Malcolm had done for them. Together they decided it was time someone gave something back. The room grew quiet as Naomi revealed the next surprise. Near the back stood several tables covered by large cloths. When the cloths were removed, Malcolm gasped. New food, on an ordinary sunny day, from someone who sees the goodness in your heart and decides it's finally time the world sees it too.